When I took my first shot at this topic, I started by showing off my friend and I's wild adventure driving down a lumpy, decommissioned stretch of road. So for part 2, I guess I'll start on that same trip. In fact, less than an hour earlier. In 2016, while out looking for adventure, my friend and I stopped off near Mitchell Point, the site where the old Columbia River Highway used to go through a tunnel blasted out of a hillside. Tunnels they are trying to recreate and open up again in the future. I never realized this until literally days ago, that as we stepped up to this fencing, the land to our right, blocked off, is actually the remains of the highway as it went into a turn before going up through those tunnels. Special thanks to the totally awesome Recreating the Columbia River Highway site for helping me confirm this. God, I love making discoveries like this. Just a few things. First off, the term abandoned is being used loosely to reference stretches that are either legit abandoned roads, roads converted into pathways, former road stretches replaced by something else even if unknowingly replaced, and so on. And while using Portland as the focus, a few of these locations will be in the areas surrounding the city. Let's get started with another recent discovery of mine, and a possible example of a street that was replaced, perhaps unknowingly, by a walking path. Back in the summer of 2018, I paid a visit to and explored the lesser walked trails, which I don't even know if they're open anymore, take you between Rocky Butte and Interstate 205. It was an entertaining and sometimes unnerving trek. Hey, check this out. I'm guessing this was, oh yeah, this was a building at one time. Check this out. Not a very big building. Was this a restroom maybe? At some time, because you've got like a drain here. You know, it is a park space. Wow, that is awesome. Okay, this is a little unnerving. I mean, you'd think this would be calming, but check that out. There's a Jesus picture up here, just left here along the trail. Acknowledging it, even at this time, I did something you should never do while exploring about, which is, when going to a new place, don't assume there's just going to be signs there that'll direct you to where you need to go. So yeah, I got lost. But if it's a spot near I-205 or any other freeway for that matter, I always wonder what things looked like before. And I noticed in a 1950s map that at one time Northeast 90th, branching off of Prescott Street near the Butte, traveled at an angle quite a ways south, roughly to the point of where Siskiyou Street would cross. Today, 90th ends at Skidmore, a ways north, but where it ends today is right at the entrance to the trails, including the main one I walked, which goes almost perfectly in line with where the street once went. In fact, it lines up so perfectly that the furthest southern point I was able to travel to on this main trail ended right about the spot where Skidmore would cross. It stands to reason that this stretch of 90th encroached on the I-205 construction and was closed down and likely just covered by much of what we see along this path today. And for those curious, yes, I figured out where I was supposed to be going and made it uphill to the top of Rocky Butte, where I intended to go in the first place. It was serene, it was beautiful, and on to actually something that's fairly similar to what I just discussed. Back in 2019, I made a trek up to the top of Council Crest on the west side. But one of the most interesting things I found that I didn't invest too much time into at the time was when I started at the entrance to Marquam Nature Park, I found that homes once existed there. Ooh, this is like an old sign. It's so old that yeah, I can see there's an M and so this says Marquam Trail, but it's so old and neglected. What's this? This is like, what was here? I mean, this could have been anything from a little garden space to like a small building. Maybe a rest area was here at one time. I don't know. Yeah, this is a staircase. I mean, blocked off now, but yeah, this is a stairway leading to something, then it just drops off right there. Yeah, this just kind of runs. Yeah, I wonder what was here. I'm gonna look up a little bit of the history of this area. No promises that I'll find explanations for why certain things are where they are. It's just interesting that this looks like it used to be a road that's been like fashioned into a trail. And that's definitely a stairwell leading somewhere. And then there's this. This looks like a little step off viewpoint area now, but I'm guessing that this was something else at one time. Old, overgrown concrete, chipped off at the bottom. There was like a door or a gate here at one time. Piping. A little bit of concrete, something good to trip over and bust your face open. Just drop off here. I wonder if there was any relation to, there's a water bureau thing right over there. I wonder if these are like water runoffs to run water down here in case there's any flooding going on. There's another one over there. These definitely ain't stairs, but I wasn't expecting to find anything really interesting, and I'm finding all these old remains of something or another that are making me wonder, like, what used to go on here. Intrigued as to why these homes existed a short ways into the park, I noted that this park was not officially established until 1979, and these homes clearly predated that. But furthermore, on maps from before then, I found that a Marquam Street once traveled a few blocks through here, something that was obviously altered through the establishment of this park. And both of the homes that once stood here, one dating back to 1888, just happen to have Marquam Street addresses, and yet Marquam Street only exists today at the entrance to the park. I cannot say for sure, but the early portion of the trail going up into the park may be a portion of Marquam Street. It's just interesting that this looks like it used to be a road. And when it comes to former streets being converted into pathways, the community of Kanema, now a part of Oregon City, was established way back in the 1840s. With still many historic homes around there today, one charm of the area is the Kanema Bluff Nature Park. I paid a visit here back in 2018, exploring its many trails and discovering along the way that, according to Google Maps, one of the wider trails in there has its origin point where a 5th Avenue ends, and possibly at one time continued along this route. Now, I will say this is the one instance in this video where I cannot say for 100% certainty that this stretch is an abandoned part of 5th Avenue, or was an abandoned stretch of road at all, but it does pick up right where the other ends. The old maps I have looked up of the area either cut off right before where the park is or cut off before we reach Kanema at all. I'm sure there's a local or two that knows for certain, but I still wanted to reference it here as at least a possibility as an abandoned road. And what's also cool is if you travel down this potentially abandoned stretch, it takes you somewhere that's kind of amazing. What? Oh, no. No way. Are you kidding me? This is awesome. And they're securing it, which is good. Obviously, it's a pioneer cemetery. Pioneer cemeteries tend to be locked up because they're extremely historical. So, obviously, I'm not going to try to sneak in or anything. But, yeah, this is the... says it's the Kanema Historic Pioneer Cemetery, founded June 30th, 1864. God, no wonder they have security. I honestly didn't think I was gonna find something, and here we are. There's just this cemetery, like Pioneer Cemetery off in the sticks. Maybe this was like more populated through here. I don't know, because this is quite a distance from what is, you know, the present day town. These were probably like the pillars or whatever that just stood here to guide you through the entryway before it got blocked off, obviously. Which is good, because some people actually do like go to cemeteries and damage them. So it's really good. There's Old Glory up there. Wow. And while I came from a different direction to discover this cemetery, for this brief moment we can see that possible extension of 5th Avenue starting just over my shoulder. September 2017. The Eagle Creek fire ripped through the rustic Columbia River Gorge, in the process destroying the Oneonta Gorge Tunnel, that itself had reopened only a few years earlier after being closed for over 60 years. Fortunately, it would be fixed and reopened in 2021. I remember going there as a teenager and seeing the old tunnel blocked off. But in late 2016, I got to visit it and walk through it for the first time. Well, you know, while we're passing through, here's Horsetail Falls, because the waterfall is shaped generally like a horsetail.
So one thing that's real cool about a lot of these waterfalls on the Columbia River Gorge is that you can just walk right down and swim to them. A couple years ago, fun fact, every time I go to the gorge, I bring
We should pull over.
I bring flippers. I bring flippers and a mask with me, and people make fun of me every time. I found 2 pairs of sunglasses, a digital camera, 2 beers. Yeah, so joke's on them, because I was tipsy with double sunglasses and a broken digital camera.
Did you see why I had us pull over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our history hasn't gone on nearly as long as, you know, in Philadelphia and stuff. Yeah. So it's real cool that we have real old things like this to go check out. Because otherwise, we don't really have too much.
Exactly. So this was, this was boarded up for a long time. This was just like, it's boarded up, there's nothing to see here. And this is like exactly what it looked like. It was all wood inside. You got the brick along the outside. Yeah, they just rammed it right through this thing here. A bunch of people. It hasn't been tagged like much in the traditional sense. Giddy up. That's our call. Let the adventure begin. This is so awesome. I came here. I've only been on Oneonta Gorge a few times, which Oneonta Gorge is right there. And this was always boarded up, and I just assumed it was always going to be that way. Never thought I'd be standing inside this old awesome tunnel. They're always, hey, eggs. This is so awesome. Look at that old bird. And then Oneonta Gorge. Just right there. Right here. Who would have thought? Obviously, the Columbia River Highway once passed through here, but ultimately the highway was rerouted to go around the rocky cliff that the tunnel traveled through. Not only leaving the tunnel out of commission, but also that old portion of the highway. So, not only can the tunnel be regarded as abandoned in relation to traffic, but the pathway that leads through it can also be deemed abandoned. Included in this abandoned stretch is an old bridge that crosses the creek, coming out of the gorge. And then this right here, this is, it's a walking bridge now, but this is the old bridge that the highway went over, obviously, to go through the tunnel. There's not really new bridge, but newer bridge. But yeah, see, the highways just turn, and then they just widen the turn. And this was a road bridge at one time. And yeah, it's really great. If you ever want to come to Oneonta Gorge, probably come on a cold day or a day when there's not going to be a bunch of freaking people here, because this place just gets crowded now. You go far enough back in there, and there's just like a pool of water with a little waterfall coming down. It's gorgeous. And while referencing explorations I did with my friend Nick, this is a small one, but while on one of our many excursions back in the day, just outside of Portland, we found an abandoned route, or at least maybe a former private road that led through some brush to a very long since abandoned barn. I have no idea the backstory of this route or where it even was, to be honest. It was just mixed up with a bunch of other old exploration clips of mine that I recently stumbled onto. Long after my short tenure at University of Portland, a friend of mine started going to school there and asked me if I'd ever been to Willamette Cove, a spot I've still yet to reach, but one early spring day back in 2018, on his recommendation I took my shot. At the time of my exploring this area, the space just south of it and downhill from the college used to be an abandoned industrial area, popular spot for graffiti art and skaters to hang out at. It was known as Pirate Park, a spot I was able to visit long after the buildings were gone, but before the land had started redevelopment. Despite much of the past architecture being gone, there were still a few signs of what once was. This whole area, headed up towards Willamette Cove, considering the history, is extremely contaminated, and even today, Metro suggests that people not frequent the cove and the surrounding areas. This might explain why a particular stretch known as Edgewater Street is for the most part no longer accessible, at least to the public. Even today, it's mostly a dirt road, suggesting it wasn't there with public traffic as an objective in the first place. During my visit, I passed this stretch briefly as it went along a railroad line, and I paralleled it as I walked, trying to reach the cove. Unfortunately for me, after walking a considerable distance to get there, I stumbled onto a no trespassing sign, leading me to turn around, which was Probably for my own good, considering the contaminants in the area, but the urbexer in me was still kinda pissed. As far as Edgewater Street, I mostly included here as I was able to find so little about it. Online searches mostly just bring up real estate sites, and the opposite end of the street, up close to St. John's, shows that a short distance down, it is closed to traffic leading to the Cove area. People have used the stretch for walking off and on, but at least as far as being down by the river, it's not recommended. Again, I love that my last video on this topic was a real conversation starter and got people making recommendations to me, which I fully plan on looking into once I'm walking around a little better. And so, in instances such as this, I leave the doors open for anyone who knows spots like this in particular to discuss, because I'm sure you know these places a lot better than I do. Right here on the other side of the fence is the old Marshall High School, which has been closed for over a decade now. Other schools in the Portland area, while they've been fixing their schools up, they've been using this one, but for now, none of those high schools are here. And you can tell it's looking a little bit more run down and abandoned these days, but McDaniel went through here, Grant, Franklin, most recently Benson High School. And this is something I did a short about, and then I realized it actually fits pretty perfect into this type of a video, which is this street. You see this truck going down it? This crossing street here. It actually, I mean, as you assume, ends at this parking lot to the high school. And I discovered this by chance, looking at a picture that I've looked at multiple times, and I just never noticed it. But you can see this is Bush and 86th. So this is Bush Street coming in, and then it just ends here as you enter the driveway to the school. Well, Bush Street actually used to go right through here. This could arguably be called part of Bush Street. School got put in, but even after the school got put in, things looked a lot different around here. Yeah, again, you can see the kind of more abandoned looking vibes of this place. But even after this high school was built and opened, I want to say 1960 is when it opened. Don't hold me to that. This was very different here. This fencing that goes all the way up over there was not really there dividing the school. I noticed, looking at this old picture, that the street that goes in behind this school, because the picture I'm referencing was an aerial taken from somewhere over there in the sky, and you can see that there's a road running in right behind the school. Well, at the time of that picture, plenty of these homes were there, so the road wasn't further off that way. It was going right through here. So I'm assuming it was an extension of Bush Street, since Bush Street will be coming through right here. God, I miss basketball. And so Bush Street would have just ran through here, which actually makes a lot of sense, because when you get to the other end of the school, there's a crossing street that comes into another street that just kind of comes up, and it ends kind of at the fence. So my only guess is that Bush kind of merged into that street. But Bush Street would have been, again, just point of reference. There's Bush Street right there. So we are like right here. We are like perfectly in line with it. So if perfectly said, Bush Street would have gone through right here. And you can see there's like houses to one side of it, and it would have been some of these. I don't know if all of these, some of these definitely aren't that old, but I know a few of the houses up here are definitely old enough. And the road is level with those houses. So where it elevates here, this wasn't really, and you can see even right here, it's elevating by the school. So this all up here wasn't quite that elevated at that time. And again, in the picture, you can see it runs, it's so close to the backside of the school that it gets obstructed. So yeah, it would have come right through here. I can only assume the road, I don't know, maybe it angled the way the parking lot does. It may have also, well, actually no, because we're actually angling, so actually, like, kind of here, we're back in alignment with Bush Street. So Bush Street actually probably, yeah, probably just would have come out and ended right here. I assume at least some of these houses on the other side of the street were already here. This street, I don't know what this is. 90th maybe, 91st. So yeah, right here around the corner is where 91st Place over here comes in, and this is 91st Avenue going that way. But yeah, so Bush Street would have come out right about here, and then you've got 91st Place right over here. So maybe this stretch was constructed later. It seems like it's a primary backway route specifically really to get you to the high school, which was obviously there when the picture was done. So it seems like this stretch of road would have been here. Maybe Bush just kind of, sorry for the wind, swerved in that way. It's a possibility. But yeah, I did a short on this, and I figured, yeah, I'll come back and do a slightly more walkthrough of little street that once cut through here, even after this high school existed.
And finally, in keeping somewhat in line with my previous video on this matter, we finish with a location in Forest Park, only further south than the likes of Leif Erikson Drive. We are moving to the southern edge of the park and a former dead-end street that was known as Mountain View Park Court. Today, this route continues through the park into the Willamette Heights area and is known as Holman Lane. But today, this is just another trail and not open to traffic. Back when the court was a dead-end stretch, however, it was known as a lover's lane of sorts. Until November 27, 1960, when the body of 19-year-old Larry Payton was found brutally murdered in his car parked along this stretch. The body of his girlfriend, Beverly Allen, who'd been with him the night before, would be found weeks later, way out west of Portland. To this day, their murders are considered unsolved, even though 2 men served time for them, and other suspects have been suggested. While producing a video on this case back in 2018, I walked this stretch, including stopping off at the approximate site where the attack on Larry Payton's car occurred. Mountain View Park Court veered off of what is today 53rd Avenue, just north of Cornell Road. Even in modern times, there was something a little unnerving to me walking through this area. It's the only part of Forest Park I've ever felt that sensation.
I am now standing almost to the footstep 500 yards down road from where this route meets up with 53rd Drive. This is presumably where the murders happened, and obviously somebody had to have been off by a little bit, I would assume, because it's literally this downhill incline. There's a tree here. There's nothing really open. It's a little open right up here, so I'm wondering if maybe that's where it happened.
Here's an image of the aftermath. You can see the police vehicle facing the opposite direction of Larry Payton's car, so thus presumably Larry pulled in, turned, and was facing the exit so that when they leave they'd be able to go straight forward. Another reason I don't think he was chased here is why would you turn? Now maybe he would have turned to try to, turn around and escape and get around whoever was chasing him, but why would he stop then? And if you look at this area, you can see there's kind of an abutment that his car's pulling up close to, and there's some darkness, some trees behind him, and it almost looks like there's kind of a downhill incline with just a lot of trees in the background behind him. So if I lower that away
And you see this ahead, like maybe this was really the spot. Now, if you look up this way, walking back towards 53rd Drive, you'll notice that there's a fairly consistent downhill incline that goes all the way up there. And it's all downhill until you get to this spot up here where it momentarily levels off before, as you can see in the distance, begins dropping down again. And it just convinces me more and more that whoever killed them, if they killed them on this stretch of road, Peyton and Alan had no idea that this person was following them. You know, since the route starts going downhill, this is actually a perfect spot. You know, if you're kind of coming down this route and looking for a private lover's lane spot, you've got this one spot here where the ground levels out. You go too much further down there, you may, you know, get stuck in the mud. There may not be any better spots than this. You're already over a quarter of a mile down the road there. This would be a smart spot to park and have a quiet romantic time together. Yeah, and I almost want to say I can make it out, but if you look through these trees, you can see, you can't really see it with the camera, but the home that was along this route, that again I believe was probably the Kroll home, you know, just a little ways through these trees and on the side of the hill there from here. And then there was another house not too far beyond here, and none of them heard the gunshot, the fighting, the scuffling, Larry Peyton probably screaming in agony for his life as he was being stabbed, Beverly Allen screaming watching her fiance die, Beverly Allen screaming as she's being grabbed and pulled forcibly from the scene. People that were in fairly close proximity to this area, and none of them heard a single element of the crime. And aside from the birds chirping right now, if you're out here with me, even now, 58 years later, a lot more people around here, a lot more traffic. It is dead quiet here. You could hear a freaking pin drop in this area.